Good morning. Man, thank you guys so much for being with us as we continue and actually conclude our series, The Separation of Church and Hate. I hope it's been formative for you as it has for us. I want to thank Pastor Paul for volunteering me that I was going to answer all your emails and concerns this last week. No, in all seriousness, guys, your thoughts have been so helpful and kind. Overwhelmingly positive response and emails and messages that we have gotten talking about how you're rethinking things, and this has helped, and we're doing the same. So as we continue through into the next series, we do want to remind you, we are going to be putting up on Facebook a link to a devotional that you're going to hopefully be reading with us as we go through this Walking with the Rabbi. It's going to take you through the Gospels, 14 days through the book of Matthew. It's on the YouVersion app on your phone. If you don't have that for reading the Bible, download it, get an account, so you'll be able to do that with us. It's going to be a journey that we all take together. I think it's going to be really helpful. So, I don't know, you may know this about me, if you've been around me at all for long, is that I have made questionable style choices. Some of you are like, have made? Yeah, past tense is what I'm talking about. So, I don't know, maybe like if you go on Facebook, you've looked through my pictures and been like, oh, what was he doing, Or my mom thinks it's great to post like old junior high pictures and be like, look at my son, how dumb he was, And so I did in elementary school, it was really cool. I did the Vanilla Ice fade haircut. Do you remember that? And I actually put lines in my eyebrow, I had and in the side of my head, because that's what we did, So I did that. I had the bowl cut for a while, and then I did the surfer part in the middle. I did the frosted tips. You guys remember the Justin Timberlake thing? I grew that out into the angry bangs. Do you guys remember angry bangs? Do you remember that? It's when you combed all of your hair except for here, right? And it just sort of like poofed out and did weird things. I did that. I did all kinds of odd choices. Today I have red socks with tanks on them, okay? So yeah, I guess it's just a normal thing in my life. I've always done this. And what has brought people then to sort of wonder things about me, like, what is this guy and what is he doing and why does he look like that? And eventually, maybe you've had this in public where you get to, for me and for many of those of us who are in ministry, the dreaded question, what do you do? And I'm like, I talk in front of sleeping crowds, that's most of the time. And they're like, what does that mean? And finally I'm like, well, I'm a pastor, I'm a minister, I'm clergy. And almost inevitably, the response is something to the effect of, you don't look like a pastor. To which I almost always respond, thank you. Right? There's some method to my madness, all right? There's a reason that I don't always want to look like that. It's because of those of us that are called into ministry that are sort of a signpost, a messenger for the church, we haven't always had the best image. And when someone hears, oh, you're a pastor, or oh, you're part of the church, or oh, you're a Christian, there's certain preconceived notions that show up. We have a bit of a PR problem, right? We've talked about that throughout these past couple weeks. That when people engage with us, it hasn't always been best. It hasn't always been helpful. It certainly hasn't always been loving. And that when we talk about things that we believe, things that we are certain are true, that we have built our entire lives on, we haven't always done it in effective, helpful ways. And so hopefully you listen to the last two sermons. If you haven't, this one will be maybe helpful, but may not make as much sense as to where we're closing out today. I hope you'll go back and listen to some of the stuff Pastor Paul talked about when he described this fact that we believe things that are true, but how then, why do we as a church, or how do we as a church make those statements in helpful, effective ways? How do we engage with people in the row or in our small groups or maybe even in our house that disagree with us? That don't believe exactly the way we believe, that don't look like us, that don't act like us. Or should I say, they don't look like me, they don't act like me. How do we engage with something that we absolutely believe is true? That we believe is even more than that, is truth. that describes the nature not of just the reality that we see, but the reality that we can't even see. How do we do this in a way that is productive to those around us, to people that we love and we care about? Thankfully, Paul and other authors throughout Scripture have helped us to see what this looks like. He sort of describes this in Ephesians. If you want to open up your bulletin or your program, there should be a slip of paper in there, has a couple scriptures on it, and then some notes that you can take. The top scripture is the one I'm going to focus on the most, but I think that bottom one is very helpful. And it's out of Ephesians chapter 4, and this is what it says: "Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, blown here and there by every kind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of people and their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work." So he's writing to individuals that he thinks are new Christians. He calls them infants, babies. And he's explaining to them, he's like, listen, we want you to know what is true. We want you to know that which is true and that which is the nature of reality. We want you to believe the things that we know to be true. And so if you've heard throughout our sermons these past 2 weeks, maybe you've started to question, what does that look like? You know, we want to lean in relationally to people that we disagree with, but how do we do that without compromising the stuff that we hold on to? And he's sort of discussing with them what this looks like. He says, guys, look, I don't want you to be like an infant, right? If you've had a child, you know that they can be amazed by the most simple things, right? It doesn't take a lot to trick a child, right? I remember when Harper was a little younger, I would do magic tricks, right? And magic tricks consisted of me like holding a coin and be like, are you ready? Are you ready? You know, and I'd throw it behind me and I'd be like, it's gone. And she'd be like, oh, where did it go? And I'm like, it's magic. She's like, can you make it come back? And I'm like, I'm not that powerful. Can you do it again? Go find me a quarter, you know, like, right? Like, you know, it's only at a certain age that you can convince a child that somehow you've magically ripped their nose off their face, right? And then put it back on and they're like, I can smell again. You know, this only happens. I'm enjoying it now. I know it's not going to last forever. But Paul says, listen, I don't want you to be like that. He's not asking us to be easily deceived. He's not asking us to just swallow down anything that comes our way. He's not asking us to just assume that every philosophy and every theology and every worldview is equally correct. That's not what he's saying. He doesn't want us, he says, to be tossed to and fro like a boat. He doesn't want us to be babies who take in anything. He doesn't want us to be boats that he's sort of this image of a boat without a rudder. And every wind and every current kind of takes it wherever it is. And if we're not careful, it can be easy. If we don't have a bedrock, something to hold on to, it can be easy to let whatever current trend or value that is now important to society to sort of move us in one way, and then they decide something different and it moves us to another. And Paul says, look, that's not what I want for you. I don't want you to be one that's just tossed about. I want you to be a baby easily deceived. And then he describes the type of people that are doing this. If you've ever been around individuals who are sort of new to something or who are vulnerable, you'll know there are always individuals that are looking to take advantage of them. They're always trying to win people to their side and sort of deceive those around them. And when he uses this phrase in that passage, it says that they're cunning, right? They're deceptive. The actual word that he uses is the word for a cube. He says they're cubed. And what he's talking about actually is dice. And maybe you've seen this in certain places. It happened back then. It still happens now. Individuals that sort of play dice games and try to make money. And the image, the narrative that he's sort of painting is you're going back behind sort of in this dark alley. And there's these guys there, and they've got this cardboard cut out, or during that time, their cloaks laid down, and they're rolling die. And if you watch for long enough, what you realize is the same people always lose, and the same people always win. And the question is why? And the image he's saying is they're playing with loaded die that has been weighted to one side. They're not trying to play a fair game. They're cheating. And maybe you've been around people that when they want to have a discussion with you, you realize quickly they're not looking for a discussion. They want to give you a lecture. Have you been in those situations? Individuals that before you've even started the conversation, they've already decided what they're going to say. And they're playing with weighted die. It's going to land one place whether you like it or not. I remember when I was down on the islands one time, we had walked off this boat and we were going on, and there was a guy and he was there at this table, and he had 3 cards. Have you seen this? And they move the cards around, and then you have to guess where the queen is. And I remember I watched this one time, and I said, I think she's on the left. And the person said, on the left, and he flips it, and it's on the left. And I was like, Dad, I'm a pro. I can win this game. And he's like, you cannot win this game. And I'm like, I can. He's like, come here, son. Just watch. And so we watched after person would come, and they would lay down their money. And the guy would mix them up, and he'd say, what do you think it is? And he'd flip it. And they'd do this once or twice, and they would win. And finally the guy would say something like, double or nothing, all in or nothing. And the guy would say, I can do it. And he'd mix up the cards. And I'd tell my dad, Dad, it's in the middle. I can see it. It's in the middle. And the person would say, it's in the middle. And he would flip the card. And it wasn't the queen. And I remember looking at my dad and being like, Dad, where's the queen? And my dad's response was, well, probably someplace in his pocket. And I was like, that's cheating. No one can win. He's like, son, you have learned. Let's go. Like I say, they were being deceptive. You knew who was going to win and who was going to lose eventually. This wasn't about having a conversation. This is about a dictator kind of making you determine what they want you to do. And he says, I don't want you as Christians to be caught up by that. And he says it this way. Now, what you've read translated, it says, speaking truth in love. That's not a great translation of the Greek. And the reason is the word speaking isn't actually there. There's no verb to speak anywhere in this passage. Truth itself is the verb. And what it's actually saying is, I want you to be truth. To participate in truthing in love. And he says it in 2 ways. One is, he doesn't want them to be deceived. To new Christians saying, listen, I want you to be able to recognize that which is true. He says, I want you to be able to recognize that which is accurate. I don't want you to be an infant who is easily sort of deceived by what's going on. I don't want you to be a boat that is tossed about in the ocean. I don't want you to be taken advantage of by individuals who are playing with loaded dice. He says, I want you to be able to recognize the truth. I got to talk one time to an individual, and their job, main part of it, a large part of it, was taking counterfeit bills. And I asked him, I said, listen, how do you know? Like when you see a bill, these things are good. What do you look for? How do you know it's fake? And he said, Aaron, you can't try to determine if it's fake. I said, what do you mean? He's like, man, there's so many techniques and there's so many things and there's so much stuff they do. He's like, here's what you have to do. He's like, you have to spend your entire career not trying to figure out what is fake, but leaning into that which is true. He says, you've got to feel these bills. He's like, I know what they feel like. I know what they smell like. I know what they look like. I know as they age what happens to them. He said, I've been around real currency and real money my whole life. And because of that, I can tell when something is fake. And Paul says he wants us to lean into the truth in a way that we know it, that we can touch it, we can smell it, we can see it, we know how it moves and ages. We can tell that which is true. He's like, look, I don't want you to be easily deceived. But there's another thing that he's telling us in this passage. And that is, I don't want you to be like that either. I don't want you to be like these individuals who are playing with loaded die, dictating and fighting. and trying to win someone to your side without even understanding who they are, and taking advantage without participating in relationship. That's not what I want for you. He goes, there is something about truthing that is more than just saying accurate information. We've sort of whittled and boiled the truth down to basically meaning, well, as long as you say something is right, as long as the information that you're giving is accurate, you've spoken truth. And this simply isn't the case. My wife tells me that occasionally I have a tone problem, apparently. And I don't know that I'm doing it. And it was made aware of this last week. Shara had worked very hard cleaning the kitchen counter. And when I say clean, if you know my wife, clean is like, I'm talking, you could eat off of this counter, you could perform surgery on this kitchen counter, all right? It is beautiful. It is sparkling. You can see your reflection in it. It is awesome. And I'm walking by and she looks and she sees an angle and she says, oh no, there's fingerprints on the counter. Now, what I thought she meant was that someone with sticky hands had touched the counter. And me assuming my daughter had gotten into some candy or chocolate, had touched the counter and left this sticky imprint. And in my infinite male wisdom, what I thought I was supposed to do was touch the counter to see where the sticky fingerprints were. You apparently disagree. But that's what I did. I touched the counter to see where they were. And I looked and my wife's eyes got huge. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm finding the fingerprints. She's like, you touched the counter. And what I said was, well, yeah, it's a counter. But apparently what I actually said was, I am devaluing your entire life's work and I don't care about the amount of hours you spent on this stupid thing. It's a counter. I didn't know I said that. You see, in words, I just simply stated a true fact. This is a counter. I was right. I was saying a true, accurate information. This is a counter. But what my tone said was, I am dismissive of the work that you have done. I don't really care. So while I may have been saying an accurate thing, I wasn't truthing. Because the how we proclaim matters as much as the what we are saying. And so he says, not only do I want you to say true things, I want not just say accurate things, I want you to truth in love. He says that's what binds us together in the passage. That's what pulls us together. That it's not just purveying accurate information at one another. It's not just shooting truth bullets at the opponent. It's truthing in love. And he says this is important for our message. He says this matters. He goes, I don't want you to be like those deceivers, the ones with loaded die, the ones who have already decided and who don't care who they're talking to and don't actually care what the effect is. They just want to get out accurate information. And truthing in love combines our actions and our speech. That the words that we say and the activities we perform in, that the actions that we participate with, and I would go on to say the thoughts that we think have to all be wrapped up in this truthing in love. And so if we're going to engage with one another, if we're going to have conversations, if we're going to do life together in any sort of significant way, we have to start asking ourselves some questions. There are some questions that we need to ask about our speech and about our actions. Okay? These are the things that we need to start asking ourselves. First thing, right out of the gate, okay? This is like the lowest standard of all of them. This is the first thing we should be thinking. As I act out, as I talk, the first thing, is this true? Is this accurate? Is this a real representation of reality? A little later in Ephesians, Paul says it like this. He says, therefore, each of you must put off falsehood, must put off lying, must put off posting fake links on Facebook, must put off spreading and gossiping false information, and speak truthfully to your neighbor. For we are all members of one body. He says the way you treat someone else is reflective of the way you're treating yourself and everyone in the group. And he goes, at the very basic level, we should at least be saying accurate things. This isn't enough, but it's a great start. I can remember a friend of mine posted something online, and as soon as I saw it, I knew it was fabricated. And I wrote him a message and said, hey, I understand why you posted that, but it's not true. And they wrote me back. They go, well, it doesn't matter if it's really true. The message behind it is still accurate. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like what? Especially as Christians, when we say something, we need to ask ourselves, is this accurate? Is this true? Is this a reflection of reality? Or am I just putting something out that fits my agenda? Am I playing with loaded die? Is this true? The second thing that we ask, is this helpful? Right? Is this effective? Is this doing something? Right? Again, in Ephesians, a different passage, this is what Paul says. He says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, only that which is helpful for building up the one in need and bringing grace to those who listen. I actually highlighted this one in your notes because I think it's important. He says, let nothing come out of your mouth that is unwholesome, that is unhelpful, that isn't doing something. We need to start asking ourselves, are we saying things because we think they're effective in a goal, or are we just venting because we're angry? I mean, it's amazing to me how much, is there anyone here who you have been convinced of something because when you disagreed, someone just got louder? Right? Two things that have never won an argument in the history of arguing. Number one, getting louder. Number two, telling your spouse to calm down. Baby, just calm down. Oh, great. Yeah, this is going very well. The other one, are we saying things because they're helpful? Do we actually think that meme that we just posted on Facebook is helpful? Like, did someone see that and be like, my worldview is blown, I've changed my mind? Or are we just posting things or saying things because we want claps from people that already agree with us? Because if that's the case, we're not being helpful. It's not doing anything except for making ourselves feel good because we vented about something we hate. And he says, not only should it be helpful in building up those that are needing it, right? The marginalized, the hurt, the broken, but he says that those that would hear it would get grace. That literally our words and actions around the people that we are with actually is a means of grace for them. That just as being in worship and singing songs and hearing a message and participating in communion, that when we talk with one another, our words would affect each other in graceful, helpful, effective ways. Is what I'm about to do or what I'm about to say or what I'm about to post helpful? Is it actually moving the people that I desire to see moved in a good way? C.S. Lewis says every interaction we have is either moving someone towards being a heavenly being or a hellish beast. Every interaction we have moves someone towards God or away from him. When we walk into a room, we either make people happy when we come in, or they're happy when we leave. And Paul says, your words and your actions, truthing in love, is helpful. It helps people move to where they need to be. So the first one, is this true? Is this accurate? Is this a real representation of the reality around us? Or am I playing with loaded die, just trying to get my agenda? Number two, is this helpful? Is this moving someone forward in grace? Number three, and this, guys, I'll be honest, this is one I struggle with. Is this necessary? Is this a necessary thing for me to say or do? Is the world going to be lacking forever because I did not participate in this conversation? Is it going to be lacking forever because I didn't stand up and do what I knew, right? Is this a necessary thing? Now, listen, I love this. James talks about this. James and Ephesians both talk about speech and the tongue and the way we act with one another. But I love how James says this. You should read through James this week. We're going to read through our Matthew next week. You should read through James this week. We've did a series on a while back. This is what he says. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Quick to listen. And listening, not so you can hear and respond. Have you been with people like that? They're hearing you, but they're only listening because they're trying to find flaws in your argument so they can come back. Look, I was a philosophy major, okay? I spent 4 years of my life training how to make people angry through arguments, okay? I'm a pro, level 99 of making people angry through arguments. This is what we do. And he says, look, how about we actually listen, not to respond, but to understand? What if I listen to you not so that I can argue with you, but so that I can get a better picture of who you are? Listen, I'm a space filler, okay? I like to talk. You guys probably figured that out. I tell the team, I said, look, I'm a goldfish. I will take as much space as you give me. If you come up early, I'll stop talking. If you come up late, I will go until you come up. That's why they came up. Guys, I've been convicted of this. I have felt the Spirit tell me, don't talk so much. Just listen. And don't get angry so often. Just listen. And start asking yourself questions, Aaron. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this necessary? And the last one, is this loving? Now I'm going to be honest. Probably, if it's true and it's helpful and it's necessary, it's probably a loving thing to say. But then how we communicate it shows if we're really being a loving person. How we say something, how we engage with one another, how we act around those who are maybe different than you are, shows if we've built our life on a cornerstone of love. Paul says, don't be deceived, don't swallow anything, don't be babies, don't be boats tossed about, don't be a dice thrower who's deceptive and trying to get their way, but be one who is truthing in love. Would you stand with me? We're going to respond today in song. And after that, we're going to conclude service the way Pastor Paul had talked about earlier. But real quick, you don't mind, I'm going to pray over you, and then you can sing and worship God together. Lord, thank you for your word, for your truth, for your love. May we be a congregation that separates the church and hate. May we be known as those who live truthful lives, lovingly. May we ask ourselves of our speech and of our actions, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this necessary? And Lord, more than any of those, is this loving? In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Would you sing with us?